So today I'll be taking apart the top part of this Rollei 35 and show you how to make the slow speeds work properly again. I'll be also talking about the speed adjustments on the Rollei 35. They are all the same. All Rollei 35 models are the same. I'm taking out these two little screws from the sides. These are SL2 flathead screws. You need to make sure that your screwdriver fits properly. I usually put these back with thread lock because they tend to get lost very often. Now I already loosened all these other parts that I'll need to take apart, but for this you'll need a spanner wrench. This is a very cheap spanner wrench you can find on eBay, something like this. So I need to take apart by taking these, removing these screws. This is a very weird screw that Rollei produced for the 35, 35T, S, etc. This screw is different from that other one. They look very similar, they have the same thread, but they are not the same. Well, these actually look like they're the same. Okay, so I'm gonna put this here, put this out to not mix them up. You remove this rewind lever thing. Let me use this. You remove, this doesn't come off. Okay. Remove this. As you might have realized, the rewind lever thing was facing upwards. And the reason is, now I'm going to turn this thing inside left. It's facing now to the viewfinder. And you'll see that there is a little bit of a gap in between there to slide this out gently. Don't scratch the top plate. And I'll just wiggle this right out. Okay. This pin pushes, well, I'll show you inside. So I put this in about the advance lever. There are these small washers that are very important. Without these washers, it rubs to the top plate. Now this camera has just the issue with the slow speed that I'll have to address. Okay, again with the SL2, you could use an SL3 for this. I'm just going to unscrew these three screws. These are brass screws, so when you're tightening it, be careful. If you over tighten, you might damage them. Then the last part is the push-in button for the, well, that doesn't turn. Let me just get, yeah, push-in button for the lens barrel. There's the button, a spacer, a washer, and a spring. This needs to be put back in that order. Now I can easily lift off the top plate. Okay, that was not easy. Some spacers fell out and one directly into my trash bin. Beautiful. So now this is kind of weird, because on this Rollei, as you can see, where that screw goes, they decided to put 3 different washers. This is the first I've seen of this. I've never seen this before, although I've done plenty of these. Okay, so we see that there's some corrosion here. Ooh, Ooh, that's nasty. Just going to remove that. The corrosion is probably from the battery. I'm going to remove. For this you need a coin. I'm going to remove the battery. And then we will see what there is behind that. Okay, so there is no battery inside, to my surprise, but the corrosion is so severe that it has actually killed it, so the connections for the battery are not even in there. Wow. That's the first. What I'm gonna do there, so I'm just going to take some gasoline. So normally what you would do is you would use some, ooh, that's the rest of the metal. You would use vinegar to clean corrosion. There is so much corrosion. So this was not expected. Take care to not let this one go. If this one is not held down by anything but the top plate. So if this one jumps off, you're gonna lose the tension on the other gear, and that's gonna be a pain in the ass. This is working quite fine right now. I'm not looking to clean everything that well. It's not that important. The light meter won't work anyways. Everything is corroded, so the hopes of the light meter working are gone, out of the window. What I want to do here is blow this stuff inside out. And then start working on the slow speeds. This goes away. Okay. Since we dealt with that, what I like to do is I like to tape this area off anyways, so nothing can come in from there. I'll just put it up here like this, and then I will trim around here. I also don't want to put it where the spring is. This spring is the light meter spring. That's not going to work, but still. Okay, so the main thing you need for this repair is a syringe with gasoline and another syringe with oil. I put them here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to screw this back on, because I want to be able to see how it works. Okay, I'm just gonna put 2. That's not really important. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this out, lock it in, and that's okay. So that didn't work with the video thing. I ran out of storage. So what you do is, well, I cannot show like that. You have to put tiny bits of oil on those gears where the gears connect. after putting some gasoline to clean. Well, I have this cleaning benzene thing, so I don't really know what exactly you should get. Naphtha probably. There is an eccentric here to adjust slower speeds under all the plates, the core part of this plastic thing. So you have screw number 1, 2, 3, 4 for the first plate after removing the wheels from these screws. And then you have another 1, 2, 3, 4 and another plate. And then this entire thing with the lens barrel comes out. And under all of these, this has a plastic part, and that plastic part has an eccentric screw. That adjusts the slow speeds. When you pull this plate out, on the other side of this plate you will see the retarder, and the retarder connects. Retarder is held by 2 screws, and after those 2 screws it's held by it's moved by an eccentric. See, that eccentric adjusts the fast speeds. So what you do is you loosen the screws that hold the retarder. One of them is here, one of them is on the other side from the back, and then you move the eccentric to adjust 125th of a second. The slow speeds is for 15th of a second. If 15th of a second matches, and if half a second matches, so half a second adjustment is this little arm here that you bend out or in. And you shouldn't do that unless it's actually bent by mistake. And then you adjust the eccentric for the 125th and lock the screws down for the retarder. And what happens is that most of the time you see that 500th of a second is not actually 500th of a second. That is because of the spring tension. To be able to retract the barrel on this camera, you need to first cock the shutter and then retract it. That cocking of the shutter moves that spring and tightens it, so over time it loses its strength. That is normal, but just make sure that you can do the 125th second adjustment properly. I always make it 1/3 of a stop, close to 1/3 of a stop slower, because when you actually close up this camera, it gets 1/3 of a stop faster. That is weird, but it happens almost all the time. So I make sure that I have 1/3 of a stop slower shutter speeds for the fast speeds. So like maybe 100th of a second, 110th of a second. And then I close it up, and it's most of the time 125th of a second when I close it up. This camera right now is working because when the camera was not rolling, I kind of fixed it. Oh, that's high speeds. Let's go to slower speeds. And that is beautiful. I've had a Rollei 35 myself for many years now, and I've never used half a second speed. But if you want to use it, it's there. Now what I'm going to do now is there's this, and it's a little corroded looking to me. Oops, that was a lot. So I'm going to clean the top of that before putting it in. I don't want this camera to be put back in dirtily. Place this where it goes. That seems okay. I check the inside of the top plate for corrosion, and here we have corrosion again. Some more gasoline. Ooh. Make sure you store your Rollei 35 properly. And I have cleaned that up. A little more maybe. Oh, that is disgusting. Normally, these cameras don't get corroded that much. This is a rare example of a camera. And I just thought about it. This screw, the earlier screw that I took out, are not supposed to match. There's supposed to be a different screw for the... Well... So basically this screw and this screw are supposed to be different. And they are not. So somebody was in this camera before. Or they lost the screw and bought a wrong replacement. Both are possible. I hate this. I hate when cameras are so corroded. Normally, white vinegar is your friend when there is this much corrosion. Now this camera has corroded so much that even on the top plate you can see where the issues are, where the corrosion was. It's just like etched itself into the top plate. What I do is I wipe this with some alcohol wipes, and this will help. The plastic parts I clean off, so the window at least is clean, even though it's not going to work. Okay, so about this pin, I'll be putting this pin back in, and I'll be basically so what you do is you put the flat side of the pin parallel to the spring inside, and then before pushing it all the way in, you turn this pin counterclockwise so the tiny little pin on top of it is downwards, and then you push it fully in, then you turn it clockwise to make it face upwards, put the rewind lever, and then you're good to go. I will test it before actually reassembling it. Okay, so what will I do now? I will just reassemble it, and you don't need to see this part, so I'll just go on and film the close-up shots now. Oops. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something.